I really didn't know what I was getting into with Luc Besson's off-kilter action film, Leon the Professional. But I've been a fan of The Fifth Element for decades, and it was fascinating to see the foundation of that wild sci-fi adventure in this gritty action shoot-'em-up. A product of its time, it showcases the range of young Gary Oldman and the scene-stealing talent of an even younger Natalie Portman. And of course, it followed the 29-point story structure without a stumble. The timestamps for every sequence can be found in the comment section for your viewing pleasure. Now, let's begin. We start as always with a focus on our protagonist, specifically their personality, their inner conflict, and their situation. Leon takes a hitman contract from handler Tony and demonstrates his disciplined and beastly approach to his career. Then he sends a clear message to a drug trafficking competitor, a job well done. Next, we examine where, why, and how our protagonists exist in their world, with a focus on why they don't quite fit in. Leon's everyday chores contrast with his wild career, and he talks with Mathilda, who's trying to grow up quickly and leave her abusive home. Her father is a lower peon in the drug operation that Leon protects. Then we meet Stan, the dark version of Leon, though just a tad more psychotic. Then a brief event happens, one that's never happened before. It's destined to lead all the characters away from their status quo. Stan gives her father a mission and a ticking clock, setting up his family for tragedy. Which leads us to examine the effect of that something new to the status quo. Specifically what's different now and what remains the same. Her father brings the abuse of Mathilda and his horrible parenting to the public eye. Then Leon approaches his mundane life with the same rigid discipline as his job. We move along to the discovery that things are less than ideal, or else we explore how badly things are. Both scenarios are common. The full breadth of Mathilda's horrible home life is on display, while her father confirms that he might be in over his head. Mathilda intercepts a phone call about her truancy from school, and Leon hears and sees it all, despite his attempts to ignore it. Next, our characters dedicate their effort to a specified goal, and this is always narrower in scope than what the third act will demand. Leon's stoic facade melts when he beholds an expression of true and blissful love. Then Mathilda makes an effort to be a part of his day. Then we run through a brief checklist of the main story elements that we can expect during this journey. The psychotic DEA agent Stan, gratuitous gun-toting action and mayhem, Mathilda pretty much on her own, and of course, complications from the drug trafficking operation. Which brings us to the brief event that launches our characters into the wild jungle of the second act. It's also called the oh shit moment. Her father is gunned down trying to escape, leaving Mathilda as a newly minted orphan. Aw shit. We follow our characters as they discover the new rules and expectations of their journey. These are always distinct to the narrative at play. Stan contains the bloody aftermath, hinting to his DEA involvement. Mathilda walks past her previous life in a desperate attempt to survive it. Then Leon admits her into his apartment, saving her from Stan. Next, our characters showcase their ability to grow and progress, and this is typically an external or physical beat rather than internal or emotional. Mathilda's cartoons keep Leon from killing the henchmen and escalating the violence, while Stan recovers the missing weights of dope. Then Leon connects with Mathilda, beginning their awkward friendship. Then our characters face legitimate and understandable reasons to deviate from their stated convictions, agendas, or desires. Mathilda proves herself unafraid of guns, unafraid of a hitman, yet Leon refuses to train her on how to kill. Then he considers killing her himself, yet barely pulls himself back from the brink. We endure the anxiety as our characters face an escalation of problems and complications. Mathilda leverages guilt to press her claim to learn professional killing, and even opens fire on a public street to demonstrate her mettle. She proves herself as a natural sidekick right away, though she's not as cautious as Leon when it comes to securing their home, and he doesn't refuse Mathilda of what she wants anymore. Next, our characters evolve internally or emotionally, and they do this by using elements of the plot or story which they've gathered and learned so far. Leon suffers the misgivings of Tony when he retrieves a sniper rifle, and Mathilda learns the progression of firearms that mark a professional. Then she nails her target with a paintball from an impossible distance. Her first lesson is a success. Then our journey-weary characters come to terms with their ongoing struggles. Moments and elements of the first act are used to gauge their progress. Leon's Act 1 mundane, disciplined existence is now shared with Mathilda, while her Act 1 entrance into his life continues to soften him, now into playing games, which results in a brief event that strikes at our protagonist's core conflict. Leon lowers his guard completely and plays at make-believe with Mathilda. Their unlikely friendship is changing Leon, and there's no turning back from here. We receive needed answers alongside our characters, which relate to both their external journeys and their internal conflicts. Mathilda makes a bid to become Leon's official bestie, ousting the plant. Then Leon destabilizes his career life when he makes a new request of Tony. Next, our characters complete their narrow scope objective, yet discover that their victory is shallow or altogether meaningless and must complete a wider scope objective. Mathilda's influence remakes Leon as a father figure, but their attachment threatens to put them both in danger. Leon beholds the truth of her innocent affections, but she's only a damaged child who's attaching herself to the first person who's been caring. Then our characters face an existential conflict that wounds their sense of self and identity or their physical journey. Mathilda lies about her relationship with Leon, submerging further into the fantasy, but she crashes back into reality at the specter of her brother's death. Then Stan provides a link back to the revenge mission that motivated her to start with. We celebrate with our protagonist in light of an undeniable win, which is always related to the rebirth in some way. Mathilda steps into the full confidence of her wannabe persona and discovers the DEA connection to the drug trade in town, while Leon bequeaths his entire savings to her, anointing her as a true successor. Next, our characters suffer a grand loss. This is always connected to their newfound inability to quit their journey. Mathilda charges in for a close-up kill, way before she's ready, and she's caught and cornered by Stan. Then we experience a thematic freefall, as the main story elements are ramped up and thrown into upheaval. Stan revels in a new low in his psychotic depravity. Then it's reported that Leon is killing the corrupt agents as a professional, and it's revealed that Mathilda left for a suicide mission and hired Leon to finish the job she's about to start, which forces us into a brief event that robs our protagonist of seemingly any hope of success. Leon rescues Mathilda in broad daylight, exposing himself to law enforcement and, more dangerously, to Stan. We watch our characters realize that they cannot return to their first act selves, and they turn to face the wider scope objective. Stan confronts Tony about the Italian hitman who's murking his crew. Then a DEA strike force captures Mathilda and corners Leon. He makes it clear that he is not going down without a fight, and Stan begins to crumble and lose control. Next, our characters use the major swings of the story and their personal journeys to move towards the climax. Impossible odds stack up against Leon, who reverts to his calm and stoic gunplay. And as the odds continue to stack impossibly against him, he appeals to love to convince Mathilda to escape. Then the final confrontation plays out between our protagonist and characters against the antagonistic force. The police escort Leon in disguise away from the scene, while Stan treads ever closer to the eye of the storm. Mathilda escapes the standoff without arousing suspicion or arrest. Then Stan the coward shoots Leon from behind, which culminates in a brief moment where our protagonist finally, and oftentimes metaphorically, overcomes their place in the Act 1 status quo. To finish Mathilda's revenge mission so it doesn't take her life, Leon sacrifices himself and takes down Stan. We experience the direct aftermath of the climax. This can give our characters a moment to reflect on the situation, or else wind down the action with a coda. Tony honors the inheritance that Leon asked for, but thankfully refuses to give Mathilda a job as a killer despite her pain. Next, we touch base with additional characters, typically to contrast them against the new status quo. Mathilda carries the memory of Leon with her into her new life, and enrolls herself back into school, winning over yet disturbing the principal. Then we conclude with a tight focus on our protagonist, specifically to contrast them against how we met them at the opening. Mathilda plants the plant to let it grow roots, signaling her honest desire to settle in for a somewhat quieter life. And there you have it. Luc Besson's off-kilter action film Leon the Professional adheres perfectly to the 29-point story structure every step of the way, and it demonstrates how dual lead roles can play off one another to strike upon every needed emotional beat. Now, let's move on from an orphan trying to find her place in the world, to an orphan trying to find his place in the universe, with my deep dive into the introduction of Star-Lord Peter Quill. Join me next time for James Gunn's 2014 Marvel origin blockbuster, Guardians of the Galaxy. As always, thank you so much for your time. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and consider commenting on and sharing this video to help the channel find its audience. Take care of yourselves out there, and I'll talk at you next time.